Welcome to this week's Raw Recap. As always in these recap videos, we go over everything you need to know about this important episode of WWE. I give my thoughts on the show, and at the end of the video, I rate the show from good to decent to just bad, or, you get the gist. As always, though, you guys can leave me your thoughts down in the comments below, but before we get anywhere into the video, be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on post notifications so you never miss an upload. And while you're doing all that, be sure to also follow the socials, man. Those include my Instagram account and my X account, and links to those are in the description of this video. But now that is all out of the way, let's get right on into today's Raw Recap. Alright, so we kicked off the night with the Usos. So they come out, but they really don't get to say much until Bronson Reed and Braun Breaker from the Vision do come out, and obviously they are on the stage, and while the Usos are actually in the ring. So basically, what Bronson Reed and Braun Breaker basically have to say here is really kind of just talking about Paul Heyman a little bit, and mainly what happened with Roman Reigns again, basically. They're saying that the only thing that they want to hear from the Usos or any of Roman's family in general is to acknowledge, obviously Bronson Reed, who is the tribal thief, and obviously just the entire Vision, and accept the fact that, that the Vision does run Raw. Obviously, Braun Breaker does bring up the question of, Jimmy, why are you even here? Because you're not even on Raw. And then Jimmy Uso says, yes, he knows exactly where he is at, and he says he is at Monday Night Raw, which if you don't know what that means, Jey Uso had a shirt tonight that said Monday Night Raw instead of Monday Night Raw, obviously a spinoff, so that's what Jimmy Uso does say there. And then inevitably this does lead into Jimmy Uso saying that it sounds like Bronson Reed and Braun Breaker, they want a match. So that's why earlier we talked to Adam Pearce, and we got us a match. We got us a tag team match, the Usos versus Bronson Reed and Braun Breaker at WrestlePalooza. So honestly, I really can't wait for that. I know the build obviously needs to be a lot better than what we're seeing just from tonight, and hopefully we obviously do get that from next week, obviously. But as far as tonight, man, I actually did like this promo. I think Jimmy and Jay, obviously they're the Usos, they've tagged together before, but just when they're together, they are so great on the mic and just in ring in general. They just shine so much more. Obviously, inevitably, we did have a big brawl because we had LA Knight actually come out and attack Bronson Reed and Braun Breaker from behind, but then inevitably Jey Uso and LA Knight and Jimmy Uso all stood tall, and at the end there was a little bit of shenanigans between LA Knight and Jey Uso. They didn't fight, but just a little bit of a back and forth kind of like argument. But obviously, we already know that we are going to eventually get Yeah versus Yeet eventually. Probably after WrestlePalooza, I would assume. But that's really all you got to know here. I actually did like I said, I like this segment, and I genuinely actually can't wait for that match at WrestlePalooza because I feel like it's going to be very good. Alright, and now we moved on to AJ Styles versus El Grande Americano. And honestly, man, this match was actually very solid in my opinion. It wasn't anything too special, but honestly, it was not boring at the same time, man. So for the most part, man, I do think this was a solid match. Now, throughout this match, we did see many great moves in my opinion, and the ending, we'll get to that in a second, was also very good, but like I said, we'll get into that in a few moments here. One thing I do want to mention, we did see another El Grande Americano, who the commentators are actually calling Dos Americano, so I guess is that what we're calling him now? I really don't remember what his gear looks like, but we've already seen this El Grande before. But he had came out, but like I said, I guess we're calling him Dos Americano, so that's what I'm gonna call him. He doesn't really play too much of a vital role. I mean, he does and he doesn't. Because honestly, I do think this is going to turn into a tag team kind of scenario here. Because also, at some point, Dragon Lee came out and helped out AJ with getting rid of Dos Americano. So I'm really assuming this is going to just turn into a tag match between AJ and Dragon Lee versus El Grande Americano and Dos Americano at some point. I don't know when. Probably not WrestlePalooza, but maybe like next week's Raw. But overall, man, like I said, this match was great. This match was pretty solid, and like I said, the ending was very good. It was just kind of like a very good technical back and forth, which inevitably led AJ Styles to hitting that Styles Clash. 1, 2, 3 matches over, man. But like I said, this was a solid match, and like I said, I do assume that we will go into a tag team kind of scenario with this setup here. Alright, and next up we moved into Raquel Rodriguez versus Lyra Valkyria, and I'm going to be completely honest here, I was really on my phone most of this match, literally probably the entire match, I'm not gonna lie. The reason for that, well, I was really just kind of did not really care. I really don't think that this is going to really go anywhere, and honestly, I don't really care until Bailey. I don't really care about Lyra Valkyria in any way until Bailey comes back, and really, because once Bailey comes back, that's going to be really where I start to take a look at more looks at Lyra Valkyria. But until then, man, I really could care less. I really just don't care. Our winner of this match, though, was Raquel Rodriguez. She did beat Lyra Valkyria, which I was actually surprised by. So Raquel Rodriguez did actually win here, but I genuinely thought Lyra had this in the bag. But yeah, like I said, man, I really did not watch much of this match. So I really can't necessarily rate it. I definitely probably should have watched it more, but like I said, man, I really just don't care. I'm pretty sure a lot of people probably feel the same as well. It really has nothing to do with hating any star. I just don't think this match was really important. I don't know, man. I just really kind of just got tuned out of this match. I can't lie. Alright, and now we jumped into AJ Lee. So AJ Lee comes out and she's pretty much gets on a little bit of what feels like a personal level. She kind of explains who she is. So I'm really not going to get too much on that because none of that is truly important to any relevant storylines. That was really what she said in the first little half, was really just kind of express who she is to newer fans and just kind of get a remember who AJ Lee really is. So nothing too crazy there. But then she finally does get into the fact where she does say that, you know, it's one thing to watch your husband face guys like McIntyre, like John Cena, and all those other guys, but it's another thing to see someone like Becky Lynch lay his hands on him and, you know, attack him basically. And then she pretty much says, you know, that's obviously why that's not the main reason why I'm here, but it is one of the reasons why I am here. That's one reason, but there's also so many other things that I need to accomplish. So she goes into that there, and then we do see Becky Lynch come out, and what Becky Lynch says is basically, you know, this really isn't about your husband, because now this is, you know, pretty much kind of personal. You have my title, you have what I have worked for, you have what I earned, and it is around your waist, because obviously AJ Lee did walk out with her Intercontinental title on Friday Night Smackdown, so she walked in with it tonight. So then that kind of continues on for a few minutes there. Then we go into where finally Becky Lynch does say, you know, how about we get a real man out here and I'll show you what a man really looks like. She calls out Seth Rollins. Seth Rollins comes out, and then we go from here to kind of just, you know, Seth Rollins says, you know, just give over the title. This can be easy breezy, basically. AJ Lee says, you know, that is a great idea. I didn't really think of that, but. You have two options. I give you the title, but I give you the title tonight, but the only way that I do that is if you agree to a tag match, or you come in this ring and try to take it from me, but you will risk another black eye, because actually Becky Lynch did have a black eye that AJ Lee did give her on SmackDown. So yeah, we go into that. And then inevitably Seth Rollins goes into the ring and tries to get the title back. That obviously does not work out there. And then finally CM Punk does come out, goes past Becky, and then hoists up Seth Rollins for the GTS, but does not pull it off because Seth Rollins does escape that. And then inevitably Seth Rollins does agree to that tag match of AJ Lee and CM Punk versus Becky Lynch and Seth Rollins. So therefore that match will happen at WrestlePalooza now, and AJ Lee gave back the IC title to Becky Lynch. So, I mean, really, just this entire segment overall, it didn't necessarily feel super serious, and honestly, a lot of it did feel kind of, you know, comedic, and just not, I don't want to say sloppy, because it wasn't sloppy. It was just it just didn't feel very serious, you know? And obviously it'll start to feel more serious. Obviously it didn't really feel serious because, I mean, AJ Lee just returned. So really the only highlight here is really that AJ Lee is back, and also we will get that match at WrestlePalooza. And like I said, this segment was not boring. It just to some people, I could see why they maybe think it was just silly and kind of, you know, just didn't feel you didn't really get that real life. You didn't really get that real feeling to it, you know? But overall, man, I personally did like this segment, and like I said, man, I cannot wait for that match at WrestlePalooza, and it's so awesome that AJ Lee is back, man. Alright, and now we jumped into Rusev versus Penta, and honestly, man, this match was actually also pretty freaking solid, man. So in this match, like I said, was solid. The only thing I really did not like is the fact that the New Day had they had a role in this. Not a vital role, not a very crucial role, but they still had a role in this, and that's not what I like. Obviously, they're there for Penta, and honestly, with this match, with Penta versus Rusev, I was really hoping that Penta would escape the New Day vortex, but it's clear WWE is not going to let up on that, unfortunately, and I guess it's going to continue to happen. Like I said, it's unfortunate. Just hopefully the New Day is, hopefully the New Day is somehow taken out of this in some sort of way soon, because like I've kind of mentioned my thoughts a little bit before, man, I don't really care for the New Day and Penta shit that's going on right now. But like I said, as far as this match just between Rusev and Penta, it was actually very solid. And if we're going to continue to see those matches, I actually am kind of hyped for that, honestly. Actually been kind of liking Rusev, man. I liked his feud with Sheamus, and if he does continue to have this feud with Penta, man, I'm all here for it. I'm not gonna lie. But as far as who won this match, Rusev did win with a Machka kick out of mid-air, man. But overall, solid match. Just hopefully soon that Penta can finally escape this New Day problem. Alright, and now we jumped into Nikki Bella versus Asuka, and there's really not much to go over here. Nothing really special, nothing really groundbreaking, man. It wasn't a crazy match. It was much like the other matches tonight. It was just solid. It wasn't anything crazy, but also it wasn't also really that bad. There was some, interest in it for me at least. And in this match, I'm not going to really talk about it too much just because it really is not going to lead anywhere, I don't think. But in this match, we did see the winner of Asuka. She tapped out Nikki with the Asuka lock. The only reason this could really improve a storyline is just the storyline of getting Asuka to fully turn heel, because obviously that's going to happen soon. They've been building for it for weeks now, so it's eventually going to happen, I would assume. It's definitely going to be soon. I know that for sure, so that's really the only only the story kind of thing that really happened here, but nothing else really too crazy. But yeah, that's really all you got to know. Asuka wins, taps out Nikki Bella. Alright, man, and finally our main event. Man, I'll tell you, dude, this Raw felt like definitely a longer one, in my opinion, but that could just be me. Yeah, but we made it to our main event. We did have LA Knight versus Bronson Reed, and it's not really necessarily what happened in the match that was really, important. It's kind of really what happened outside of after the match, if you ask me. So I'm gonna recap what happened during the match really quickly. It's just, as you'd expect, it's a solid match, it was a good match. Absolutely, it's kind of what you'd expect from LA Knight and Bronson Reed at this point. Obviously, the winner of this match actually was Bronson Reed. I actually did think LA Knight was going to win, but we did end up seeing Bronson Reed win, which is perfectly fine. This is where we get into more interesting things here. So we do have Jimmy Uso come out because obviously Bronson Reed and Braun Breaker, they do plan a post-match attack on LA Knight. Jimmy Uso comes out to help. That doesn't really end up working out, we think, and earlier in the night we were told that Jey Uso was leaving. He actually said it himself, but guess what happened? Jey Uso actually ended up coming out afterwards, and then inevitably the Usos and LA Knight did stand tall, but Jey Uso actually ended up spearing LA Knight because, Jey Uso is kind of pissed with LA Knight, man. So I'm actually loving that tension that we're seeing there. Potentially a heel Jey Uso. I don't know, but it's potential. That idea definitely has potential in the future. But yeah, I'm definitely loving that tension there, and that's why I say that's really what was more important here in this main event. But like I said, as far as that actual match, it was good, it was solid, it was a overall good match, man. Like I said, Bronson Reed did win that one. But that's really all you have to know here for our main event. Alright, everybody, well, then you have now reached the end of the video. I do hope you guys did enjoy. As far as this episode of Raw, I do give it a solid. This was a solid Raw, man. This Raw was definitely a solid one. There was nothing that was absolutely trash. I mean, yes, there was things that maybe I just didn't really care for, but nothing terrible, nothing absolutely garbage. But as always, leave me your thoughts down in the comments below. I do read them, and I do reply to some of them when you guys do comment, of course. But as always, like the video, subscribe to the channel, turn on post notifications so you never miss an upload. And before we fully get out of here, be sure to subscribe, or not subscribe, follow the socials, my gosh, which are linked in the description of this video. Like I said, that does include Instagram and X. You can go follow those, do all that. Helps me out a ton. I do hope you guys did enjoy, and I will catch y'all boys in the next one. Peace.